So I'm with you all day today. We're doing a session this morning, continuing to look at the personal development and network plan, and two sessions on that, or sessions 3 and sessions 4, as they highlighted there in yellow. And also I'm here this afternoon after lunch to continue on with a review of yesterday, particular points that I picked up in talking to the universities and also in my one-on-one discussions with each of you as scholars, particular questions and issues that I think we can share with the larger group. And then I'll be here for question and answer as well. So there's still an opportunity to have a one-on-one with me, and I can stay here until it's dark, until the moon and the stars come out, and meet your needs. So I'm here to be available to you as much as I possibly can. So in terms of the plan so far, in terms of my sessions, we've done session 1 and session 2. And session 1, as you know, was very much an introduction to the idea of why do we need to do personal development plans, and associated with that is quite often a network or a social network plan as well. And we talked about that. We've introduced you to the template as well. And made you aware of why we need to do planning and what are the advantages of planning both in the short and the longer term. And then the second part of that presentation was in session 2 when we started talking about what a change agent does. And he or she is an individual who, with a particular set of technical skills from a degree, master's or a PhD or other qualifications, and also a temperament or a set of other skills around people skills, interpersonal skills, cross-cultural skills, skills in being able to persuade and influence other people, skills often in understanding the politics of organisations and the politics of communities. He or she with that skill base is able to challenge the existing what you might call status quo, or the way things are done around here, and they then begin a process of either as the primary change agent or in joining a team or a community of others in starting to implement a process of change. And it's quite interesting that when you look at change as a whole, whether it be in a team or an organisation or a community or even a nation or country, quite often the change is more incremental, or what we might call evolutionary. It's step by step, it's fine-tuning, it's gradual change. And we find that that type of change is more acceptable to individuals and more likely that gives them an opportunity to take on board the new attitudes and behaviours associated with that change, to learn and see the advantages of that change to a particular practice in particular. And then as they engage in that practice and that change, and build a stronger relationship with the change agent, see that the change agent's ideas lead to success, and that these ideas can be implemented by me as an individual with some difficulty, but with some challenge, but it's not impossible, then the momentum builds. And once the momentum builds, then you can get more and more incremental change advancing through a team, an organisation, a community, or a nation. Yes, there is the other type of change, which is more revolutionary, which is sometimes we call it big bang change or frame breaking change, where you break the frame and start all over again. But that type of frame breaking change or big bang change is more when you are responding to a particular crisis. And in saying that, you might want to think about how many nations have responded and communities have responded to COVID, and whether it was more evolutionary incremental changes that built upon each other, or whether it was more revolutionary change, quite often in response to a major crisis or event which needed a more immediate action. And quite often that revolutionary change, that big bang change, also occurs because there's crisis, there's urgency, there's issues around survival, but also sometimes there can be resistance, and delay is not good for implementing the changes required to maximise the likelihood that we're going to survive and thrive through this change. And again, I'm not here to make a comment about COVID, but in Australia, I think it was very much a process of both incrementalism, but also at stages, also big steps that were taken by the change agents, quite often from the health departments and quite often from the government itself. But at a community level, there was a lot of support for the changes which occurred. So change agency is very important, and we've talked about the fact that as scholars returning to your country, that there's a great opportunity to use the technical skills that you're going to develop through your master's and your PhD degrees, and you're going to develop a whole host of new technical skills, but also you're going to develop that other set of skills around cross-cultural relations, around emotional intelligence in terms of just understanding a bit more about yourself and those you work with, managing your emotions, the emotions of other people, how to develop. In psychology, we talk about the idea of mastery, achieving a sense of mastery, achieving a sense of total engagement with the topic that you're doing using technical and non-technical skills. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk about a skills audit that we're going to do as part of the learning, the personal development and network plan. So today I'm going to talk about this skills audit, and we're going to use the template. And then in the second session leading up to lunchtime, I'm going to look at a whole range of strategies that you can employ to start closing the gaps. So we've now identified goals, but I'm going to come back to this in a moment because I know you were sent an email last night just reminding you to make some progress on those goals. But we're going to find time just to check in and open up the template and just work a little bit more upon those goals, because getting that to a sort of a good stage is useful when we do the next stage, which is very much identifying skills that I have now and looking for what we call skill gaps. So part of today will be to look at revisiting the goals, starting to look at a gap analysis on my skills that I have now, and then looking at gaps in skills. And I think I did this on the other day. Here's my skills now, but I have to operate over here as I become a change agent, and I might need a new additional set of skills or a fine-tuning of my skills. So how do I make that leap from here to here? There's going to be a gap, and how do I close that gap? So session 4 is going to look at a range of strategies around how you close that gap. Everything from becoming the more reflective learner, that is becoming more likely to be looking into oneself about why am I behaving that way? Could I have done this better? What am I observing about the way other people behave? And therefore, when I engage in this behaviour again, how might I do it better? How might I improve? To the role of coaches and the role of mentors and other activities that you can engage in. So that's the plan for today. So we've begun the Development Network Plan, the PDNP, and today we'll revisit that as part of the living document message that we've got across. So this is a document we continue to return to a number of times. We've gained some understanding of the adjustments that people make as they transition to a new culture. And as Richard said in his very penetrating question the other day, well, Prof, by the time we go through that curve of adjustment, it's time to go home, which is almost what he was saying. But the whole thing is to kind of make that adjustment dip very quickly and get out of that and start to make that fine-tuning and that settling back into a new culture and performing effectively as effectively as you possibly can. But there's always that fall off in performance as one goes from one place to another, a comfortable place to a less comfortable place, and then over time that less comfortable place becomes more. That's the idea, that you'll become uncomfortable because you'll look for that similarity attraction, you'll look for what's similar. I know when I do it, when I come here, I look for things that are similar. Suddenly I do things which are wrong because this is a different culture, different values and different behaviours, and then I adjust accordingly, and then the performance gaps you go back up to that level of performance. That's the key thing, getting to that level of performance again as quickly as possible. Because universities in Australia, as you would have again been reminded of yesterday, set very high standards, and they expect you to be, ready to go on week one, ready to move on week one. So you really need to come in well prepared. And I know you'll be well prepared in many ways through these workshops and through your language skills and so on. But I know you're getting there 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and that's a really good time to do a number of things, which I think I've mentioned already, but very important to make good connection early on with understanding the campus, getting to know where your classes will be, because you'll know from the lecture timetable where those classes will be. I, as a lecturer, do the same thing. I go and look at where I'll be teaching and knock on the door and see what it's going to look like. know where you'll be going, know what the timetable is, know where the library is, because that's your new best friend, understanding the library and its resources, knowing where student counselling services are, and very much using that first couple of weeks just to orient yourself to the campus, let alone opening up the textbook, electronic or hard copy, and looking at what the textbook talks about and reading ahead so that you're like a week or two ahead of what the lecture will be about. And again, you've done it before, you're professional in that you've done degrees before, you know what I mean, but you do really need to keep doing that in Australia because the pace can be quite quick. Some initial goals. We worked on some initial goals that you've developed into your PDNP, and we'll come back to that in a moment and just go a little bit further with that in some quiet time. I'm looking at about 10 minutes at least to work on that again. We've talked about seeing yourself as a change agent, and also the whole idea is to start to develop this understanding, this better understanding of yourself around your emotional intelligence, your cultural intelligence. And just as a flag here, I'd like you to go back, when you get a copy of the slides, there was that from session 1, we had that cultural intelligence measure, which I put up and we sort of just looked at very quickly. I'd like you to go back and do that. It's not very hard, it's a scale. And then to look at your scores on that and maybe reflect upon that, and then to put that back into your personal development network plan as well. What were the insights from that? What does it say where, over those different dimensions of cultural intelligence, where was I doing pretty well okay? That's fine, but where were there possible gaps there? Things I need to be a little bit more aware of around issues to do with my adjustment in Australia. And then you could build that back in. Maybe it becomes a goal within your personal development and network plan. But please go back and just complete that measure. It will only take about 10 minutes. So my aims today, in summary, are to go very much into going back to looking at the goals and the goal setting, doing a broad audit of your current skills and the skills required for future roles in Indonesia. And then that's very much session 3, as we call it. And session 4 before lunch will be talking more generally about a range of strategies you could use to start to close that skills gap. And part of it, obviously, you'll be closing that skills gap through the training you do in Australia, but also through a whole range of other design features that we might use that phrase, ways in which you can design your environment to maximise key people, key agents, key social supports that might help you adjust and also help you with your study in Australia. Let's open in our link to your personal development and network plan and look at where you're at. And what I'd like you to do is to go back to the section 1. So it's this one, personal development network plan, section 1, your goals. And then to start looking at the goal statements that you've developed there. Zone in on that laptop and start thinking about what are my goals and just developing those a little bit further. All right, so we'll just have a quiet time for 10 minutes. Okay, I think we're there. So we're continuing to think about our goals, and once one starts thinking about goals, then you're really saying to yourself, asking yourself, well, what skills do I need to achieve those goals? So we've now started to establish what these goals are over different time periods for different target groups, for career, for organisation and for country, and we're looking at different time frames. So you've got quite a sophisticated set of goal setting that you've now worked through, and you'll need to continue to revisit and complete. So again, I'll encourage you just to go and find some time to complete that in that reflective time that we're trying to highlight. So we have goals, and now I need a set of skills to achieve those goals. So what do we now do? Well, in the next part of the template, we're moving into what's called a skills, I call it a skills audit, which is in a way, it's like a self-reflection. It's a personal view on what skills I have now and what additional skills I need for the future. And that's when we start to identify gaps in any skill set, and we need to think about ways in which I can close that gap. It's quite a simple idea, but it's often quite challenging to often achieve finding the right skills to close those gaps. So a skills audit essentially is a process to ensure that the training and development programs achieve maximum results. If we're running a training and development program, which we could broadly say, which is what you're engaged in for 2 years or 4 years, we want to make sure that we maximise the outcomes, both for you as individuals and for the organisation and the funders that are actually supporting these programs. So in a way, it's a measure of effectiveness and making sure we get maximum performance from the investment dollars that we put into any program. But also for you, that we get maximum outcomes for the time and the energy and the effort that you put into the 2 years and the 4 years that you study in Australia. Skills audits help us to identify what skills are required for a given role, and also which employers possess the necessary skills to get a job done. So in most organisational settings, you will do a skills audit, mostly through the Human Resource Management Department, to identify who amongst our employees got particular skills, and therefore with those skills we might employ them to particular assignments or particular activities or particular challenges that the organisation is facing. So skills audits are used by organisations in a way to pick their best who have got those skills to do a particular challenging assignment or task. A skills audit also represents the opportunity to identify potential knowledge and skill gaps that need to be filled to do future roles. So organisations and communities do skill audits to identify future roles. Organisations and nations change over time in response to what's happening within their wider environment. You know, nations or organisations or teams that don't change don't survive. And so as we sit here, this organisation and this nation has been impacted by a whole range of forces, which means that the nation needs to change and evolve over time. Whether it be Australia, whether it be Indonesia. What are those forces? They're social, they're economic, they're political, they are environmental, legal, and so on. These are impacting upon any organisation or any nation that we belong to. And with the impact of those forces, we need to have different types of members of our community or our nation or our teams. They need to have different skills to allow them to respond to these forces that continue to impact upon entities like teams, organisations, or nations. So an outcome of any skills audit is a training plan, which identifies often is called a training plan or an action plan, and we call it an action plan within the template that you're filling in. And then when we talk about closing these skills gaps, here are my skills now and I need additional skills, how do I close those gaps? Quite often that closure is through two broad approaches. One is through on-the-job training, and the other is, which is challenging tasks and coaching and so on, and the other is what we might call off-the-job training, which is university study and other training. And we'll talk about a combination of those in our session for this morning. So in thinking about what these skills are and thinking about what the skills audit might look at, and your template is going to list these, again, I remind you about the skills list and the qualities that we put up last week as well. These are the driving qualities and skills that we are targeting through the Australia Award program. So I won't go through those, but you can run your eyes around the whole set of, let's call them personal qualities, about people being more empathetic, more values-driven, which is all about emotional intelligence skill sets, being a lot more creative, strategic and flexible, which is much more what we'll call in a moment conceptual skills or strategic skills, which are often a higher level set of skills. We then have the interpersonal skills, which are like a second set, and below that is often the more technical skills. So technical skills here can be the whole thing about ways in which you might do a particular role or task. So just to keep that in mind, and we'll be coming back to that when we look at the skills audit. So when you look at skills and career success, most of the research and literature shows that there are three sets of skills that allow a person to achieve their career goals. Three broad sets of skills. There are technical skills, there are let's call them human skills, interpersonal skills, and there are more conceptual skills. And people with successful careers need all three skill sets, but their relative importance changes based upon their stages in their career. So we all need technical skills. We all need bachelor's degrees or master's degrees or PhDs. These are technical skill channels. We all then need what we call human skills, skills in communication, conflict resolution, persuasion, negotiation, understanding and managing our emotions, dealing with the emotions of other people and so on. And we all need conceptual skills. These are the higher level skills. You might call them theoretical, you might call them strategic, tactical, or policy. It's words like that often get this into this idea of conceptual skills. So let me look at it this way. So if we look at this figure, we've got, here are technical skills, here are human skills, and here are the conceptual skills. And here are three types of careers. We have supervisory management careers, we have middle management careers, and we have top management careers. And if we look at the essential three sets of skills to develop the technical skills, so if we look at these sets of skills here, what are the technical skills required for a successful career? The research tends to show that the technical skills that are important in early career, because often technical skills are most important in the early stages of one's career, include the following. That is, a good set of technical skills means you've got some factual knowledge about the job, the team, the organisation, the community, or the country. You've got that factual knowledge. You've got that understanding of the organisation you belong to, the community you belong to, what it does, what its mission and values are, and what role people play as part of that community. You've also got knowledge of the products and services. So if you've got technical skills in an organisational setting, you've got factual knowledge about its products, its services, what we do as an agency or a ministry, or what we do as a private sector company. What are our products, what are our services, what are our challenges? And also you've got knowledge about issues to do with maybe equipment or processes or procedures that are involved. So essentially when we look at this, then really most people who operate at a supervisory level and move into what we call a middle management level must have sound technical skills, because your reputation is based upon those technical skills. The people in your team expect you to have mastery of those technical skills. They won't be led by you as a supervisor or a middle manager if they see a gap in your skills. So you've got to have good, sound technical skills. It makes you credible, it makes you trustworthy, it makes you someone who could lead that group. So technical skills are very important as a group of skills that we need to make sure that we all have. The second set of skills, as I mentioned, are the human skills. And these are, again, the three essential skill sets we have. The second lot are human skills, and this is about knowledge about and being able to work with people, and this is important at all stages of one's career. We need to have good human skills or interpersonal skills no matter what level we operate at in an organisation or in a community. You're not going to be the chief executive officer or the minister in charge or the director general or the echelon one or whatever it might be unless you've got good people skills. So we talk about people being smart but dumb. Okay, you know what I'm saying? They are smart, they've got really good IQ, but they are dumb. They have got no interpersonal skills. And I think all of us have someone come to mind when we think about this. Hopefully it's no one in your family. But smart but dumb. So really smart but smart, that means they are smart IQ but smart EQ, and we talked about smart cultural intelligence as well the other day, is all about being aware of one's own perspective and the perspectives of other people. And we talked about the idea of strong emotional intelligence, and I'm going to look at this a little bit later on. Another set of skills are about assisting group members in working cooperatively to achieve a common goal. So this is all about being able to build a team, understand team members, understand their needs, understanding their skills, and develop that sense of teamwork and team climate that leads to higher performance. And what a good person with good interpersonal skills does is do that well. And finally and thirdly, they create an atmosphere of trust and empowerment amongst the team members. So they are seen as credible, trustworthy, and they're seen as a leader of the team. So returning to this model, at all levels, whether you be a supervisor, whether you be middle management, or whether you be the top CEO of the company or or the lead person in the organisation, all of you need good human skills for each of these three roles, okay? So while technical skills is that level for the middle management and supervisory, people who operate at all levels of organisations need to be smart, not smart and dumb. And then we've got the conceptual skills, the idea that the three essential skills to develop one's career. The third set are conceptual skills, the ability to apply, I guess the way I put it here is different frames, to look at things in a different way, to see an organisational community or country challenge in different ways and to understand those challenges from different, I call them perspectives or different lenses, or even to put on maybe in figurative way, putting on a different hat. So when I work with my organisations and my students, I talk about, well, let's look at the problem from a number of different lenses. It's like putting on a pair of glasses. So, okay, let's look at this problem as to why it exists using what I call a structural lens. And the structural lens would look at, well, let's look at the reporting relationships, look at the roles that people have, look at the resources we give people. Is this the cause of the problem? Are there structural problems? And then I might say, okay, let's take those glasses off and put on a different conceptual lens, and it might be a cultural lens. What is it about values and behaviour and cultural factors that might explain why this problem exists? And then we'll take the lens off and maybe look at issues around human resources. And let's look at this problem. Why does it exist? And maybe it's a human resource factor. People aren't trained enough. They're not educated enough. They're not supported enough. They don't have good leadership. And then I'll often say, okay, take that lens off and put on a fourth lens. And I call this the four frames model. And the fourth lens might be power and politics. Is this problem all about power and politics issues within this team, organisation, or community, or nation? And that's about power and resources and the allocation of resources. So each lens, and sometimes people talk about a gendered lens, often putting on a gendered lens. So each time you look at a problem from a different perspective, this is what we call higher level conceptual skills. And we expect this of those in particular in leadership roles. So briefly, that these are people who can work with abstraction, work from theory, and put forward hypotheses. Okay, we have this problem. Let me hypothesize why this problem exists, and then I'm going to research and test out with my team or with those I work with a number of potential solutions as to why this problem is caused and what we can do something about it. So you're testing hypotheses. You're operating at a fairly good conceptual level. Doing research is a bit like this. You've got a problem, you gather the data, you have hypotheses or research questions, you gather the data, and you're testing out different options. The second is that you're central to creating and articulating a vision or a strategic plan. So people need good conceptual skills if they're going to be, let's call it visionary or strategic. And finally, it's very, very important to have these skills at top management. So if we look at conceptual skills as a skill set for all of us to have in 5 or 10 years or 15 or 20 years, these are very much the skills we'd expect of people operating at a middle management and a top management level. All right? So that's just a very quick look at the idea that there are different skill sets required at different stages in one's career. And quite often I talk about people develop at a technical level in their early career. They then move, if they wish, because some people will stay technical, but people then can choose to move into a more middle management role where the people skills are much more important. And then some will choose over time to move to the leadership roles, or what we've called there the top management roles, where it's really the people skills and the conceptual skills are quite critical. Having technical skills is less relevant. They did that 20 years ago. It's more about having the credibility of being good interpersonal skills and having good conceptual skills. So we've got our goals and we've gone a little bit further with them this morning. Now it's time to do some reflection about on where you are now in having the skills to achieve those goals. So I have some goals, but do I have the skill set to achieve those goals? What skills do I have now in an honest evaluation and reflection, and what skills do I need more of? Whether they be those technical or human or conceptual skills, if we look at it in those broad categories, or if we go back to that skill list that we looked at for Australia Awards Indonesia. And so working through each of the items on your master list, there's a 5-point scale, and I want you to do again an honest assessment. And we're going to look at a number of areas around that particular evaluation of your Section 2 on assessment. So can you now go to that? Should be the next link on your template. And it looks like this. Personal Development and Networking Plan, Section 2 Assessment, Personal Development and Learning Plan, and then you've got skills, qualities, knowledge, qualifications, and experience. And I've moved ahead. Look, I've filled mine in. PhD and 30 years plus. So think of your, it's not listed there, but think of the technical skills that are associated with the qualification you're going to do in Australia, your master's or your PhD. You should kind of have those in your head already. But just as a reminder or in a way, a cheat sheet about what the other skills could be around the human skills and the conceptual skills, that's what that might be as a starter for look for the right words. All right, so you need to go in there now and start thinking about the skills. All right, let's spend 10 minutes getting started on that. So Amanda, I might just call upon you to help me here as well. So we're arguing that these skills are mostly, if we just go back, that these skills are we're technical. We're looking at technical skills, which is from your university degree. We've got human skills, which are mostly the communication, emotional intelligence skills as well. And then we've got a third set that I've called conceptual, strategic, policy related. And if we go back to the Australian Awards, let's say, list of skills, alumni skills, after one has finished the program, to me that's a combination of human skills and more conceptual. Okay? This is just some words. These are just, I guess, ways of just throwing to you, here's a list of skills to get you thinking, to give you the words that you might use within the template, plus other words that come to mind. The technical skills are not listed here because that's in your heads. You know what your degrees are going to be, and you know what technical skills you're going to learn from your Masters in Communication or Masters in Conservation or your PhD. Where they're having challenge is very much the idea of, just going forward, is the issues to do with quality. Is that right? No. Yeah. So do you want to explain that in a bit more? So we have skill, quality, knowledge. Qualification is easy. Experience is easy. Low, middle, high. Knowledge you can do low, middle, or high. But skill we know you can write a technical skill, a human skill, a conceptual skill. But quality, yeah.
So quality is probably the easiest way to explain it is a conversation that I was just having. If, for example, one of your goals, your career goal, is to have a particular job, if you think about the job advertisement for that role, often they'll list sort of qualities. You know, what characteristics do you need to have as a person in order to be able to succeed in that job? You know, the ability to manage your time and be a self-starter is a quality. Curiosity and the ability that's connected with the skill of problem solving, being interested in the world around you, being persuasive is a skill, but it's also a quality. Being able to engage with people. That's what that means.
So I wanted just to add to this as you think about the skills, and you've got you might say, well, you've got phrases up there like emotional intelligence and other phrases as well. How might I get an understanding? And I can guess, you can make an assessment of, well, what am I like as a communicator? Am I good at building empathy with people? Am I a good listener? And you could do all that, but you could also do a more objective measure, and there are many of these available on websites for free, okay? And I'm just listing some of these. So there are online skills audits that you might also want to do in addition to getting you working on these skills audits. So it's giving you like additional data. Here's what I think, but why not do a test that's free online and get the result? A bit like the culture awareness test that we did that you're going to go back and complete. That's another one you could do. But these are additional ones that you could do as well. And quite often they are good measures of the human skills area, okay? And they include, this is the site I use, www.123test. It's a free site. I've got nothing to do with it myself. And you've got measures there of career, so what career best suits my personality. You've got measures of competency, which determine your strengths and weaknesses around particular competency. There's a work values test, which is very much like a, what values do I have that match the type of work I would like to do? There's a team roles test. I use this with my students, which says that when I'm a member of a team, what role do I prefer to play? Am I a finisher? Am I a research gatherer? Am I someone who's a debater? You know, we each have preferred roles that we like to have when we join a team. And arguably team performance is you need to have a mix of roles. So it might give you some insights about, well, maybe I've got this preferred role, but I need to broaden my team roles. And then there's another one called situational judgments, a measure of your behaviour and attitudes to work-related scenarios. So that's there. So go think about that website, and that's really good, and I use it with my students. And then there's another one, and we've talked about this idea of the human skill of emotional intelligence. And there are a number of emotional intelligence measures, and these are free. If you start one and they start to ask for money, stop them. Okay, these are free, and typically when you get the results, they send you a lovely report, and it'll give you your scores where you score high, medium, and low. And quite often they will give you some understanding of how you might build that part of your emotional intelligence. So it gives you like advice on developmental activities to build up that part of your profile where you might be a bit weaker. So they're really very valuable in that. And these are at least 2 websites. And again, you'll have these when you get a copy of these slides. And that gets us on to an action plan. So the action plan, if we just maybe open up our template again and go on to the next section. So you've got to scroll down now through your skills audit. Go to the bottom of that. You're actually going to go to that there. It'll be section 2, action plan. So what is an action plan? An action plan lays out the tasks you need to complete in order to accomplish your goal. So I have a goal. I have an understanding of the skills I've got to achieve that goal, and skills I've got which look like that's going to help me achieve the goal, but additional skills I need to have to achieve the goal. So I have a skills gap, and now I need to develop a plan of action or an action plan about ways in which I can achieve the goal, and in particular start closing these skill gaps. And that's what I'm going to talk more about for the rest of this morning. It often breaks up your planning in actionable steps. We're all, as human beings, we like to do things in step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We like to see things as linear and connected, when often they're not linear and they're not connected, but it helps us because we're simple. Human beings like to break things into little bits, and it breaks up the process into actionable, and therefore probably the other key word is achievable. Think about SMART. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. SMART. So what an action plan does is follows that idea of SMART, specific, measurable, and achievable. A good action plan outlines all the necessary steps to achieve your goal and to help you reach your target effectively by a time frame, a start, end date to every step in the process. You get a start and an end date. So you start setting yourselves a challenge. There's nothing more challenging than a really specific goal. Think about the goals you've achieved in life already and giving it a time frame. Telling it to yourself, here is an important goal. And the other big part I find of goal setting is telling others. I have set this goal. You tell a close friend, you tell your mother, your father, you tell your partner, I have set this goal. By this date, I'm going to do the following. Once you start publicly stating a goal, it raises the level of commitment. Yes, you could put it on the fridge, on a piece of paper with a magnet. Here is my goal. Many people do that as well. But, you know, there's nothing better than writing the goal down on a piece of paper, because in the writing is the commitment. Once you write things down or type things in, it's starting to say, well, this is real. This is something. And once you give it a date, it becomes even more real and more likely, here is something that's important to me. And sharing with other people raises the importance and raises the commitment further. So don't be afraid to communicate your goals to others. And then the action plan makes it easier for you to stay motivated, because it is a motivational device because it motivates you and monitors your progress towards goals and developing the skills required to meet those goals. So that's what that does. So if we go to the action plan part of the template, there's quite a detailed statement here about your action plan and how you'll fill the gaps. So you've now done the training needs analysis, you've identified skills, and you're starting to identify 1, 2, and 3 with the lowest scores, skills gaps. And you're starting to wonder, well, okay, here are my gaps, and you've got this dilemma between what skills do I keep going and how do I balance the maintenance of old skills which might be useful in my career in the future and this new skills repertoire that I might bring in. So this is a challenge that we all face at different times in our career as we make these different transitions. And what an action plan does, as I've just highlighted before morning tea, is it does a number of things. It's a motivational device, it's a plan. Like all plans, it does give you steps and stages. It can be a way of rewarding performance and you can see the achievement of goals. And in particular, what it does is it does outline steps, allows you to stay motivated and gets you into thinking about potential actions that you might engage in. And what we're going to talk about a little bit more in a moment is about what are these ways in which you could do that. So let's move on to action plan, part of the template. Can you click on that button on the top? So this is now where we're transitioning, and I'm part of that transition, and Amanda will take that transition further with you on Friday about thinking about ways in which I assemble a whole range of people and practices and resources around me to allow me to achieve my goals around achieving particular skills. And that's what the action planning does, is getting you to think about what this reservoir or this range of people and resources might be that I can bring together. So as it says on your template there around action plan, you've got an idea of what the main areas are that you're going to work on. You now need to generate a plan on how you will strengthen these areas and how you'll ensure progress towards your planned end state. So how do you keep yourself motivated to achieve these goals? And all goals, as we said, are often challenging. We often need to set moderately, we talked about this the other day, moderately challenging goals. We're not motivated by easy goals and we're not motivated by impossible goals. It's got to be something in the middle. And only you are the expert enough to set those goals, but often you can set those goals in consultation with others, a mentor, a coach, a boss, a friend, and we'll look more at that in a moment. But as we've said, take 4 or 5 priority areas you've identified on the previous pages and spend some time brainstorming and researching how you might be able to improve in these areas. And the options in terms of closing these gaps in knowledge and skills could include a range of people and resources, things you read and watch, courses you might want to take, professional development workshops in Australia or Indonesia, people you know, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, about gathering around you people with particular expertise, or organisations you might become involved in, professional associations in Australia, opportunities to just drop in on things on campus. And I think I've said this before, but one of the wonderful things that PhD students can do, and also master's coursework students can do, is you've got this enormous thing called a university with multiple disciplines and multiple opportunities just to walk in on things. And quite often there are workshops, there are seminars being organised by student services, but also in your academic schools that you belong to, there'll be lots and lots of seminars with people coming in from either locally within Australia or internationally coming in and being experts in their field and running free seminars that you can be involved in. And with the PhD students, there'll be a whole range of other workshops that they will do, while the master's students, quite often there are other things, and we've talked about this, placements, internships, and even when you do your mini theses, there's an opportunity to go out and gather data from the communities that you are living and working in that might be part of your mini thesis. So all of these opportunities for outreach are there.
Yes, so at this stage, you're really just looking to identify the plan of action for how you will fill the gaps in your skills knowledge networks. And you're not going to be able to focus on all of them at the same time, as Victor was saying. So and this might be something that you need to come back to after you've spent more time filling out the plan, but you'll see a pattern where you might have some particular skills that keep coming up for each of your goals. And so they should be your priority areas and the ones that you focus on first.
Yep.
So for this section today, all you really need to focus on is today's date and then your plan of action and then the date that you're going to come back and review that. And that might be in 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And then the final column is for at that date when you come back for you to make notes on how you're doing and what more you need to do, and then to set another review date.
So if I reflect upon my students, and I teach masters and PhD students a lot, a major skill, and you know this as well as I do, a major skill is critical thinking, and that was there on your list. And that's often a big transition for international students from all types of countries. And, you know, what do we mean by critical thinking? And as I mentioned in the workshop yesterday, for those doing the master's degree, you'll be doing 3 times at least 36 to 48 pieces of assessment, and a lot of that is written. And amongst that will be some group work as well, working with Australian or international students in group presentations. And then for the PhDs, you're doing a major piece of critical writing and thinking called a thesis. And also for those who do the coursework, the mini thesis, the same thing you'll be doing. It's a piece of critical work. And it's not descriptive, where a lot of international students think it's, here's... And again, goes back to what we talked about in session number 1, this whole thing of power distance. In Australia, because we have low power distance, when we read something, we say, okay, that's an expert, but here's another expert, another expert, another expert. And in a way, we read and we compare and contrast their opinions and form a view about what is my position based upon what I've read about and how that position might influence then the way you might do your mini thesis or the way in which you might ask a particular research question. The same with the PhDs. But in a high power distance culture, which like where you come from, because of status being very important, what a professor says or what an expert says, you tend to take as being the opinion. That is, am I overstating this? But you tend to say, yes, what they say is believable, or that's truth. Well, in Australia, there's no truth. You're going to have multiple truths. And what you do in terms of critical thinking is you're looking at these multiple truths. The truth might be is, you know, the question might be is, how can we get people to conserve energy better? That might be your research question. Or how can we get people in organisations to more likely whistleblow if they see a corrupt activity? Or how can we improve and reduce traffic congestion in a major city? These are all research questions. And what you're doing is reviewing the literature with multiple positions about how you might solve those interesting questions. And quite often in a mini thesis or a PhD, you're putting forward 2 or 3 schools of thought or positions, and then you're getting the data, then probably coming back and saying, on the weight of the evidence from the data, the evidence shows maybe school of thought number 1 is more likely to be proven by these data. But school of thought 2 and 3 still might be relevant, and you might explain how. Or none of these might be relevant, and you put forward your own theoretical position, your own conceptual view. So critical thinking is really important. It's just not taking bits out of an article and saying, here's what I think, or here's what Smith or Jones thinks. It's looking at multiple positions, and that's a difficult skill to learn. And the way you learn it is you practice it and you read lots of material, lots of good research articles on how other people write critically. And you can develop friends, networks that often look at your work and give you reviews, and your professors can also give you an opinion as well. I get lots of emails with, here's a draft, here's an outline, and I often ask and say, just write me the first page and I'll give you an opinion on that. And for the PhDs, of course, we read the whole thing again and again. So if we summarise session 3, about to go into session 4, what we've been talking about this morning is the idea that I think when you look at skills, you can put them into 3 skill sets which are important for one's career. They are the technical skills, the human skills, and the conceptual skills. Going to Australia, your 2-year studies for your masters, your 4-year studies for your PhDs, you're going to develop a whole range of technical skills. Like when I did my PhD and when I did my mini thesis in my masters, I developed a lot of conceptual skills. So I developed a lot of technical skills around using databases, using the library, writing critically, a whole set of technical skills as well. And then really as well, the human skills are, as we know, are often about communication, problem solving, working with other people, working in teams. And then there's a whole range of more strategic, conceptual, higher order skills. And we talked about our different stages of one's career, supervisory, middle management, senior management. Those skills play a slightly different role, but the human skills are important at all levels. We've looked at the idea that many of us will have strengths in a particular area, but also an area for further development. You've begun the skills audit, and you're starting to identify in an honest and frank way, in a way you're having a conversation with yourself. You're looking at yourself and saying, look, honestly, I do these things quite well. These are other skills that I need to develop further. And you'll need to continue to review and go skill audits. And I'm encouraging you to look then at the human skills online. We had measures of emotional intelligence, team roles, other diagnostic skill sets, which are free. And I'd do those and then, in time, do those and then bring them back as an opportunity to add those to your personal PDNP, your personal development network plan. And then, as we've just touched on, is the important thing of a PDNP is the motivational device of having an action plan that mirrors SMART goals and skills development, and that's all we want to say on that. I'm now going to do my final session with you as session 4. So my approach now is to talk about tools for growing skills and for developing a better action plan. So what are some ideas that I could incorporate into my action plan that might help me start to close those gaps? And clearly going to university in Australia for 2 or 4 years is part of that. So it's important for growing skills to build a support network. You know, it's a rather lonely journey in developing skills anyway, but if you can develop a network around you of others who are like-minded and equally motivated, that can help a lot. And the advantage of getting a network around you is that you can learn and support each other, you can learn and support, share knowledge, you can work together, you can give advice, encouragement, and possibly access someone who's got skills that you don't have. So in the work I do, I have many research assistants, I have many postdoctoral students, they have skills that I don't have. And they often provide those technical skills to analyse data or to collect data on the big projects that we're doing. So, you know, that's part of the support group that I need to do my work. And a big one of these that Amanda will talk much more about when she does her session on networking is the Australian Global Alumni Network, who are a fantastic source of support. So living in Australia will allow you to grow the diversity of your network to support you, your goals, your skills development and your careers. So there's an opportunity not to be introverted. Many of us are introverted, as we like to spend time. I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I'm an extrovert in front of you. But I'm more introverted. I like to sit and read or work on my papers and close the door and just go with the flow of what I'm working on, be in the moment. But also the extroversion is very much the social interaction with other people, getting energy from people rather than energy from ideas. Introverts get energy from ideas, extroverts get energy from other people. So ways in which you can support this is to start growing the diversity of that network. You've got the Australian Global Alumni Network that Amanda will talk more about. You've got your lecturers, your tutors and your guest speakers and your classmates as a source of building that network. Lecturers and tutors are there in Australia, and I'd hope they're as approachable and as friendly as I am. And I have lots of students who talk to me after class, and we talk and we converse. Nothing better than face-to-face, going to classes, being available, talking to the professor in class like we've been doing, and talking to them before or after class if you've got additional questions. That's a more powerful way of building a network with your professor than by email or by Zoom. Okay, get to the classes. You know, don't spend your time in your kitchen, in your accommodation, zooming into classes when you could be in the class. Go to the class, be with people, and make connections with people. I've already mentioned the opportunity to attend seminars, meetings and conferences, but especially seminars and meetings. And Australia Award might be also organising something around conferences, but look at seminars and meetings on campus, workshops, research presentations and so on. Getting engaged with career events organised by the school, the faculty or the university that you belong to. This is now, we call it a big deal. This is now high priority. So it's all about, and more over the last decade or so, you've now got a lot more career counselling going on campus. So it's very likely the faculty you belong to, you might belong to the Faculty of Science, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Social Sciences, Faculty of Medicine, whatever it is, and then you'll have schools below that, and each of those faculties will organise career events, speakers coming in, and also maybe career advisors. And all the universities these days have career and employment offices centrally, and often the bigger faculties that have got more money, like medicine and law and business and engineering, will have their own career advisors. So you kind of have two opportunities to get career advice. Possible opportunities for placements in Australian organisations as part of your Masters or your PhD. We talked about this already. In your Masters by coursework, usually in that fourth semester, there's an opportunity for a placement or an internship, and you've got my views on that. And you would have heard yesterday from your universities. If they organise the placements, wonderful. If they don't, stay away from it, because you'll have to organise it. But nearly all of them, from what I heard, are organising the placements, often as individuals or groups. And the same with those doing PhDs. You don't really kind of have a placement, but more likely you might have an opportunity to work in a company or collect your data while you are also doing your PhD. Possible work as research assistants on research projects led by your thesis supervisors is quite possible. It's not impossible, it's quite possible. It depends upon the technical skills you've got. So you might have a range of computing or IT or software skills, or you might have a range of interpersonal skills around doing interviews and running focus groups or whatever, and you need to make your supervisors aware of that. They'll become fairly aware of it quickly, but I think it's no harm in saying, I've got these skills. If there's opportunities for research work, I'm here. But to verbalise it, don't be shy to tell them I've got these skills and maybe show them evidence of that through something you've written or something you've done in the past. That could be very useful, because we're always looking for good research assistants to collect data and to help us analyse our data. So when you think about building your skills, I want you just to have in mind the idea of the learning pyramid. And the learning pyramid is this idea that when we learn and we learn our skills and think about your action plan, we have a mixture of what's called passive and more participative learning opportunities, which maximise the retention of our learning. So if you ask the question, what learning strategy maximises my retention, that is my memory for what I've learnt, and my memory and then use of that maybe in a practice or an activity, it's rather frightening, but lectures only carry around about 10% of retention. So we run lectures and only about, in terms of retention and making a change on practice, behaviour, it's about 10 to 20%. Reading's about 10 to 20% in terms of retention. So these are the so-called passive areas of learning, lectures, reading, and you might put in here Zoom, could be audio-visual. And then these more active or participative learning opportunities like discussion, classes, engagement in classes, practice by doing something, practice by teaching someone else a skill. These participative activities are more likely to lead to a retention of the learning. So the message from the pyramid is use a whole range of strategies. Nothing wrong with reading, nothing wrong with going to lectures, but try to combine that with other activities which are more engaging. So yes, go to lectures, which are more passive. Even in Australia, they're still passive, with often the professor talking most of the time and lots of question and answer, but then go to the tutorial, because the tutorials are more participatory, are more where you sit with other groups and you more have arguments and debates about an issue, or you practice an activity. There's nothing wrong with reading quietly in the library and reading material for your assignments, but there's nothing better than then sitting down with others and sharing your drafts of your essay or your assignment with other people and getting them to be a critical friend. So it's that combination that you should engage in. But think about the learning pyramid. So let's go, if we use the learning pyramid
and just look at the example of reading, and I read all the time, it's part of what I do. At one end of the pyramid is reading, and I'd encourage you to become an avid reader. You know, if you don't do this already, you know, it's a case of looking at a whole range of publicly available and online material. Good old Jakarta Post. I like to read Jakarta Post. I read the English version. Is it always in English? Yes, I love it. You know, it's good. But also I read and listen to a whole range, like I've got the Australian Online and so on. The big one at the moment is the conversation, not the conservation, my error. The conversation, and that's a vehicle that we use a lot for, I guess, communicating an academic article, an academic idea into a more conversation article with the general public. And the conversation, do you have the conversation in Indonesia? Yeah, it's worldwide. And it's a very, very powerful device. So looking at articles by the conversation. So at one end of the pyramid is the idea that the question is, how do I close my skills gap? Well, there's nothing wrong with reading and reading material widely, and that's one way. The other way at the other end of the learning pyramid is the idea of practice by doing, and this is where you learn by doing. You practice an activity or you practice a skill, and then you get better at the skill. So I'm an avid rider, and when I ride my road bike, then it's always practicing the skill. And I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a night, 3 or 4 times a week, and I'm on the bike and I'm practicing hills, and then I get on the bike. So practice improves the skill, improves the motor coordination required. So we learn on the job, and we know that's a very powerful way of learning. And we also learn by being coached and mentored by other people, and we learn by, as I said, the classroom is only 10% retention, and this is about 20%. But the big one is we learn by doing, we learn by practice. So in picking up some ideas then about how I might, use this learning pyramid or use these ideas to close gaps, I want to just throw some ideas at you, and we're going to do an activity around this now. One thought is to find, let's call them a mentor. Find a mentor to support and guide your skills development. So what is a mentor? A mentor is often a person, if you look at what I've written there, who has got, it's an intentional development process. It's not an accident. You actually find a mentor, so you have the intention of finding a mentor. Maybe it's one of your goals. I have a goal to find a mentor. And he or she is someone who usually has these qualities. They're more experienced and are more knowledgeable than I am, and they help me to nurture the professional and personal life of the less experienced and less knowledgeable person. So they are the mentor, and you are what we call the mentee. M-E-N-T-E-E. Sounds like a lolly, but you are a mentee. And you are mentor-mentee, and the mentor is a more experienced, knowledgeable person, often usually a bit older than you are, and this can be a formal or an informal relationship. By formal is you approach them and say, can you be my mentor? Why? Or the next 4 years. And the good thing about this, coaching is different. Coaching is teaching someone, I have a tennis coach, or I have a golf coach, or a swimming coach. They teach me what to do with my hands when I'm swimming, or how to use my club when I'm playing golf, or how to hold the racket for a volley or a serve. They teach me a particular skill. They're not teaching me anything about life. They're teaching me a skill. That's what a coach does. Football coach, soccer coach, okay, swimming coach, golf coach. But in terms of mentoring, there's much less focus upon enhancing a current job, but much more about the career and the career path, the 5 years, the 10 years. And that's what a mentor is much more about. Now, the good news is that when you do research on this and look at the impact of mentoring, there's a strong correlation between the support from mentors and effective leadership development, recognition in the workplace, greater career opportunities and promotions for mentees. So there's a fairly strong correlation between having a mentor and taking on board their advice and their knowledge and their support, and impacts positively upon one's career. Recognition in the workplace, developing as a leader, and more likely to have a positive career outcomes. So what mentors do is they provide motivation, direction, training, advice, and promote feelings of success. A good mentor does. And for example, I'm a mentor to several people and have these rather formal relationships. In fact, most of my mentees are women who think I might know something that'll be helpful to them. Now, when you look at mentoring, there are really three types. There's the one-on-one that was the traditional, mentor-mentee that I've really talked about. A more senior person's usually outside of the mentee's direct reporting relationship. So it's usually someone who's not your supervisor and not your manager, but maybe a supervisor or manager in another part of the organisation or from another community. Or in Australia, it's not your supervisor of your mini thesis or your PhD, but maybe another person within the organisation that you've come to meet. And many of these student services actually do help you find mentors in organisations in the university. This is often a very big one as well. Peer mentoring involves a mentor at the same organisation as the mentee. So finding someone at your same level, it's like a critical friend. I often call them a trusted confidant is another word. Critical friend, trusted confidant, and he is someone or she is someone at your level, and you can have that conversation. It's like, this happened and I tried this and I got this reaction, some positive, some negative. What do you think? What would you have done better? And it's that sort of conversation. And many of us are used to having these sorts of peer mentors. And the other is group mentoring. Typically involves a group of 4 to 5 to 6 people in a learning group who interact with a senior mentor. That's less likely, but it does happen. In a way, when you do a PhD, you might have a supervisor who's got 6, 7 or even 8 PhD students, and I do this with mine, and you gather together. So we'll sit down in my office over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and some cake, and we'll have a conversation. So I'm there with the 6 or 7 or 8, and it's very much a group mentoring session. And it's not so much talking about their theses, which might talk about some of those technical issues and share knowledge and resources amongst the group of PhDs, but it's more about other issues around career and career development, job opportunities, advice around what people have found useful or not. It's just a general conversation, a support network. So that's another thing to keep in mind in many opportunities that might arise around group mentoring. And when you set up a mentoring relationship, there's a number of stages that you go through, and a mentoring relationship it could be lifelong. It's more likely to be a year or 2 years or 3 or 4 years, but it's more likely 6 months to a year. And it goes through stages. Contemplation. I'm thinking about getting a mentor. It might be an interesting idea. I see the evidence that Prof has just put on the board that mentoring helps with leadership development, career development, raising one's profile. That could be good for me. I'm contemplating, thinking about that. Initiation is then approaching someone about the fact that you are thinking of approaching them as a mentor, and really it's just like a knock on the door or an email says, could we have a conversation? I'm here for 2 years, I'm here for 4 years, I've got lots of transitions to make, lots of challenges, lots of skills I've identified in my action plan. Would you be available to meet with me every 4 weeks or 5 weeks to have a conversation? I'll pay for the coffee, you'll pay for the coffee, and we'll have a conversation somewhere. And that conversation could be in their office, it could be in a boardroom, it could be out on the terrace having a cup of coffee, but somewhere relatively quiet where you can have a one-on-one in confidence. You then go through a growth and maintenance where you grow and develop as a result of the ideas from the mentoring relationship. You could ask them, and I think I mentioned this the other day, as a mentor I might say, look, here's a really interesting article. Have a read of that and we could talk more about that later on. Or there's a really good program on television on Friday which I think talks about this issue in great depth. Why don't you watch that, then we could have a conversation around this. Or here's some workshop that's coming up. And then the important thing is you actually do that. So next time I meet with them, yes, they went to the workshop, yes, they watched the television program, yes, they read the article. So it's all about delivery and follow through. It's really important. And then essentially, like any relationship, it goes into decline and redefinition. Decline is, well, I've done all I can do. I think I've been valuable to you as a mentor. There's only so much I can deliver. You might now move on to a different person as a mentor, and we might redefine the relationship. I might stop being a mentor, and this does happen, and go more into a coaching role. So think about the fact that it does go through phases. Lots of web pages you can look at on how to approach a mentor, the value of mentoring, and stages. So this is just my idea on how you find a mentor. You'll have this on the slides that we'll give you. Typically longer in the profession, usually outside your direct reporting relationship. They've got a particular expertise that maybe your skills audit has shown you're lacking a skill. They've got that skill. They've got the time. I think that's really critical. They've got the time. Usually they're very, very busy people. They're committed to a whole range of activities, and they're going to make a commitment of time to you. Therefore, it's important that you deliver on what's talked about in that conversation. Okay? It's often a guided discussion. I know it is with mine. I have a beginning, a middle, and an end when we have conversations. We work through a number of issues, and we have a plan about next time we meet, we're going to talk about the following. So we have time, and we're making good use of that time. So you can motivate the individuals to learn and grow, well known about their ability to guide and counsel. So how do you find a mentor? Often the reputation around the university or around the community. Often talk about certain learned people or certain distinguished people as being good mentors. So that might be a guide. And you can seek out mentors in Indonesia and Australia. Nothing wrong with having 2 or 3 mentors. One in Indonesia, one in Australia, and having mentors for different periods of time. Okay? So again, read about that and think about that. So let's have a play. What I'd like you to do on a piece of paper on your laptop, or even go into there might be some space in your professional development plan, but a little activity. Identify a mentor right now, and again, this is not committing you to anything, but identify a mentor right now who might be a good match around qualities that you need to develop or skills you need to develop and my willingness. So you could put in here their name, Bob, Susan, Mohammed, whatever it might be, put a name in there. Do they have the required qualities? Well, probably yes, if you're mentioning their names here. Am I willing to raise key issues with them? And that's an important thing. Am I willing, if I think of that person, am I willing to meet with them, approach them, and then raise personal matters with them or key issues with them? If it's yes, so you've got yes and yes, the next step is, well, how might I then engage in the next step? You might get advice from another person. You might look at websites about the next steps in approaching a person. Quite often it's a knock on the door or an email that you might consider. All right, why don't we just have you got space somewhere, piece of paper, notes on your pad, some other, open a Word file, and all you've got to do is put a name in here. We're just having a play. You're not committing, but this is just getting you thinking about the process of identifying a mentor. Who has got a mentor already? Who would say they've probably got a formal and informal mentor?
I have a mentor, and she was with me for over 20 years.
Over 20 years, okay.
Yes, because
again, you can have a lifelong mentor.
I'm almost 50, so it's okay. Half of
That's
my
okay.
life
Yeah.
I spend with her. Actually, she is also my guide.
Yep.
Well, mentor is the right word for her because she's really expertise in her, the subject study or the field that we are working together with.
Yep.
And also, she's a good mentor, but it's not only helping me to grow in my knowledge, but also in my personality.
Okay.
So I was a bad temper person, but she, through the discussion, through the meeting, through the talks, I grew day by day better.
Okay.
So, and that's the change in my character is really support me in my ability doing jobs in organization and then the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, this is just an idea, okay? We're not saying any of this is compulsory and that you have to do this, but I'm just putting some ideas on. If we ask the question, how do I close the skills gap? I close the skills gap by thinking about a whole range of learning activities in the learning pyramid, and mentoring is part of that, as well as reading. So let's move on, just aware of time. So when you look at an ideal mentoring relationship, then you've got these sorts of questions. What type of person is the mentor? How formal is the relationship? And I think the more formal, the better. When do we meet? Where do we meet? How often do we meet? What we meet to talk about, and how long the mentoring relationship lasts. These are often all features of this. But to me, the important thing is once you get past this, that we meet it's fairly formal and we meet once a month, then really what we talk about is the key one. You know, what is like an agenda. I have agenda. We have certain agenda, 2 or 3 issues we're going to talk about. It might be a particular skill or a particular challenge that that individual has, and we'll talk about that. And really, I just do a lot of listening. I do aha therapy. Aha, aha, aha. Good idea. Aha. Why not try this? You know what I mean? A little bit more than that, but it's that sort of talking and supporting. But in particular, I say, okay, given what you've talked about, why don't we think about the following? And then I like it when they go and try those ideas out and come back in a month's time and say, look, I went to that workshop, I read that article, or I approached that person that you mentioned. Now, besides the pyramid and the mentoring, another idea is to have in terms of a general goal around careers and what is my personal brand. So just as products and services out there and organisations have their brand, you too also have a brand. We talk a lot about this in terms of career and career development. So personal branding is the process of creating an identity for yourself as an individual. It's often about your self-concept. It involves developing a well-defined and consistent look, message and presence online and offline. So it's in a way, I know it's a terrible example, but when you buy a nice bottle of perfume, it comes in a lovely package and lovely wrapping, and you open it up and it's a lovely bottle and it smells good. It's a brand, and it's got a lovely brand name as well. And it makes you feel better, and it has a point of difference. So what a personal brand is doing is finding in particular around you, your uniqueness, building a reputation on the skills you want to be known for, and then allowing yourself to be known for those skills. So in particular, it's about developing a reputation about a skill set that you have. And then there's often a unique skill set where people will approach you because they know you are well known for doing the following. All right? So if I talk about my personal brand, I'm well known for a whole range of areas, but in particular for my ability to work with industry. So in my field of academic life, unlike many academics who are very good at closing their door and working on a theoretical argument and publishing in a good journal, that's fine, I do that as well, but I'm also very good at working with industry and taking the ideas that I research and combining it with what industry wants and developing a good research partnership with them, where they give me research money and we look at issues that are important to them. So it's all about developing a skill or a reputation. So a personal brand is how you promote yourself. It is a unique combination of skills, experience and personality, and it's how you want the world to see you. If I exaggerate a bit, I know people who dress in a particular way. I know women who only wear purple. And it's all about being a feminist and being into the idea of feminist, the colour is purple. I know men in Australia, and part of their brand is they always wear a suit and a tie. I don't know other men that always wear a suit and always wear a bow tie. Because it's different and it's who they are. Or they wear a nice pocket chief, or they wear, we don't wear cravats in Australia. If you're in France, you might wear a cravat, but they wear something that makes themselves look different. Or they're always beautifully dressed. And at the other end of the extreme are people that just look like a slob. You know, it's a T-shirt, they're Steve Jobs shorts, a T-shirt and thongs, but that's who they are. That's their brand. Okay, it's not my idea of a brand, but it's a brand. So how can you build your brand? It's all about going back to your plan and saying, what are the skills that I've got? What are my strength skills? Okay, well, because up to now we've been talking about gaps and things you need to develop, but look at the strengths that you already have, which are a big part of your personal brand. And it's all about preserving and building and promoting those skills. So define what your unique skills are, define who your audience is, develop what we call a value proposition that is how knowing you adds value to others in their business. So if you know me and you therefore access my skills, the following benefits will come to you as an individual or your team or to your organisation and your business. Develop a brand slogan if you want to, and have a particular look or way in which you present yourselves. So influencers do this a lot. Again, you know more about influencers than I do, but influencers have a particular branding and they have a particular reputation and a particular image, and they cultivate that image as much as they possibly can to grow hundreds of thousands to millions of people online, and then they pitch messages to you. They try to influence you to buy particular products or have a particular point of view. So if we play with that, again, find a bit of space somewhere, just as an activity, and again, this could go into your personal development plan. I want you to develop a brand statement, just again to be playful. A personal brand statement of 1 to 3 sentences that explain what you do and why you are unique in your field. So think about your strengths, not about your shortcomings, your strengths, and say to yourself, it sums up your experience, your skills, and your passion so that people can easily understand who you are and what you offer. So imagine, and this sounds terrible, that you are a product sitting on a shelf. You want someone to buy you, okay? You want someone to pay $1 million US to buy you, your services for 5 years. And you're going to say, well, and what I'd like you to do is draft a personal brand statement in a space on your PDCM. So what might be a way to do this? The way I'd like you to do it is just be playful. Put your name in, type up your name. I put Victor Callan in a space, so find a Word file or just find a blank space or a piece of paper. Just put down your name or put your signature. Just type your signature or write your signature. Okay, we've all done that. You all know who your name is. Wow, hardest thing you're going to do all day. What is my name? Then put floating around that name your best qualities. So Victor Callan, best qualities, works with industry. Best qualities, reliable and delivers what he promises. Best qualities, honest. Best qualities, hardworking. So put your name and float around that, whatever way you'd like to do it. You can be artistic or not, or just put your name and do some dot points below. Put down 3 to 5 qualities about you that are your strengths. This is your brand. So you have a brand. We've all got a brand. So in terms of a personal development and network plan, the point I'm making is it's just not about weaknesses. It's about identifying skills that you've got that are strengths and developing a brand and a reputation around having those skills. So the important related question is, and this could be in your plan, is what might be a goal around what else I might add to that brand? What additional skill or reputation might I want to add to that? So you might say, okay, here's my brand now, but after 2 years or 4 years in Australia, I want to develop another part of that brand which might be an expert in something. Okay, all right? So that's what you might want to add. But this is important because when you apply for promotion and developing your career, it quite often comes down to, especially early on in your career, it's about a set of technical skills that you've got. But then clearly as you move up, it's more, as I said, the human skills, and they could be part of your brand, and then the higher level conceptual skills. So personal brand, having a brand, is just another thought about closing the gap, but also getting you to think it's just not about negatives, it's about positives as well, and enhancing and building my positives as part of your time in Australia. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this. You can build your skills around your understanding of your career anchors. Now, this gets at the idea that all of us in the room have got a preference around the way, what we'd like to get from what we do or how we'd like to spend our time. So a career anchor is the idea that something that develops over time and evolves into our self-concept, that is our understanding of ourself, shaping our personal self-image. It includes your skills and abilities, the things that we believe we are good at and not so good at. So it's somewhat related to our brand as well. So the idea here is that all of us have got, again, it summarises things very quickly. it's not sort of saying there's just these things, but it says there are 8 career anchors. And they are technical. I want a job, I want a career which is all about technical competence. So let's look at these. Technical, general, autonomy, security, entrepreneurship, giving service, pure challenge, and lifestyle. So if I quickly look at these, what aspects of me, my self-image, would I never want to give up? Read the 8 career anchor descriptions that follow and rank order from 1 to 8, never give up, or 8, definitely could give up. So if we go back to these, it says that I am motivated to follow a career in which I engage in my technical competence. That is, I'm an engineer, I love being an engineer, it's the technical skills of being an engineer, I would never want to give that up. Or my career anchor is management. I like to be with people, build teams, and work with people and see people do well. Autonomy independence anchor is all about I want a career that gives me autonomy. If I look at an academic career, it's very much about autonomy. In a way, in my long career, I've never really had someone tell me that will be your research project. I've never really had someone tell me that is what you're going to teach. A little bit I have, or that's a student you're going to supervise. I have got high levels of autonomy and independence. Security, stability is I want a career that gives me stability or career. I want a regular wage. I don't want to end up traveling all over the world. I want security of promotion, of tenure, of knowing where I'm going to be, all right? I want a career that's very much about entrepreneurship and creativity. That's self-explanatory. I want to be able to develop small businesses, startups, be an entrepreneur. I want to have a career that's all about a sense of service, serving the community, serving the country, serving my friends and colleagues. I want a career that's all about pure challenge. I love adrenaline. I have a daughter, one of my daughters is an emergency physician. She works in emergency departments in hospitals, treating people day and night, loves the challenge. It's about what is the next worst thing that's going to walk through the door. Another patient who's had a heart attack, another patient they're all falling off scooters in Australia and killing themselves, and they walk in absolutely disaster. That's the challenge, loves the challenge. And lifestyle. I want a career that gives me work-life balance. Okay, so you can see what a career anchor is. So if we put this in a more thing is, what aspects of me would I never want to give up? So what aspects of me would I never want to give up? So they are technical, general, so here's the definition, most motivated towards being very knowledgeable and producing highly effective work in some field. General managerial is I want to excel, I want a job that allows me to excel in working with people, managing emotions, working with others. Autonomy, I'm attracted to jobs in which independence is highly possible. I'm attracted to jobs where I've got stability of employment. I'm attracted to jobs around entrepreneurship where I can create things. Service, I can dedicate my work life to the service of others. Pure challenge, I can reach the highest goals. And lifestyle, I want a balance between work and family. So that's the career anchors, and it's another way of guiding choice around skill sets. So if we just go back, I've got a longer definition there, but because of internet and time, how about you just rank order these? 1, 2, 3, 4, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Rank these in order of 1 to 8. 1 is I would never give up, and 8 is I would give up. So of these 8, what's the 1, 2, and 3 that you would never give up? Is that making sense? If Victor asked me now, what is the one thing in my life, in my career, that I would never, ever want to give up, what would it be? Is it autonomy? Is it balance? Is it clear challenge? Is it entrepreneurship? Is it managerial? Is it technical? So what's number 1? And then say, what would be the next one I would never want to give up? The next one, right down to number 8. So just do a ranking of 1 to 8 off that table. So if we do a quick survey, hands up, be brave, who put technical functional competence as their major career anchor? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, about, what do we say? 20% of the room? Okay. Who put general managerial competence? Often that's a lower one, but it's about 5 of you in the room. Well done. Who put autonomy, independence? I want autonomy and independence. These are the free spirits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe about 5%. Who puts security and stability? Okay, I thought there might be more. 1, 2, 3, 4, about 10, 12. Who put entrepreneurship? I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make $1 billion. About 7 of you, okay? Who put sense of service? Again, it's a fairly good number. You get a hand clap as well. Okay. Hands, like for example, I've got, again, I'm being proud of it, I've got an Order of Australia from my government for very much my service roles. AM. Who got pure challenge? These are the ones that love to bungee jump and ride bicycles without helmets on. Pure challenge, thank you. And finally, lifestyle, work-life balance is again a very big, it's probably number 2 out of the group, so technical and then lifestyle. So you can see what we're getting at here. It's just another thought, another thing to just add to your thinking processes as you look at your development plan. So these are, when you get the slides, are just more detailed examples of each of the profiles. So you'll have, it's like a personality profile in a way for each of the 8. But we took a short version of that. The final point I want to make as we wrap up is that besides all these other activities of mentoring and learning pyramids and the idea of thinking about career anchors is the idea of being a reflective practitioner is the word we use. So, you know, for example, we often use the word that, for example, I'm a pracademic. I'm an academic, but I'm a practicing academic. I'm a pracademic. That is, I like to do research that makes a difference. So I do pure theoretical work, but I do application of my work. So I'm a pracademic. And a lot of what I do is I reflect upon the work I do and as to how that maybe that work or those ideas might make a difference. And I'd like you to think about as you do your personal plan, we're going to use the word reflection. You're going to become reflective learners or reflective practitioners. You're not just a scientist, you are a reflective scientist. You're not just a policy expert, you are a reflective policy expert, okay? And the idea here is that you engage in practice and reflection. You have an experience. What do you think and feel about each of those experiences you have? What lessons are drawn from this experience? How can you apply those lessons? And then for the next time you engage in that experience, how do you do it better? So it's that learning loop. Engage in a behaviour, reflect upon the behaviour, what lessons are learned from that behaviour, and how do I do it better or differently the next time, or even the same the next time round. So engaging in reflection. And we all do it in an accidental way, but it's all about practicing reflective activity and using that again as you develop your skills. So as you develop a new skill and you try out that skill, how well did I go in developing that skill? How did I feel about the first time I displayed that skill? What lessons were drawn from that? How could I apply and how might I do that differently? Again, lots of websites you can look at, lots of material you can read about being a lot more reflective. So, some points to remember as we wrap up and go for lunch. Grow your skills by building a support network is the point I've been making. So build around you a scaffolding, a number of people and resources that are going to help you deliver on your action plan. So here we are developing new skills and new qualities. You can't do it alone. You've got to really add to that a support network. That support network could include what we call critical friends. That's very much that peer coaching, peer mentoring, critical people you can actually have those. You are thinking and feeling. Again, I'll get close to the machine here. Thinking and feeling. A trusted confidant to give you advice, encouragement and support as you develop your skills and your action plan. Think about the learning pyramid and how you could access a whole range of strategies to close those gaps. Reading material, going to lectures, having discussion with others, developing a mentor, practicing in the behaviour that you're thinking about, the new skill, and then reflecting upon how well you did that new behaviour or not. Finding a mentor, developing a personal brand is important, I think, just to get the balance, because personal development plans are often seen on the negative side, Yes and no. But a personal brand is all about, well, what skills do I have now that are part of my brand? And as a result of my action plan, I want to add new skills to that. Here's my name and here are my skills. There's other things that will now orbit that brand and add to that brand as a result of my 2 or 4 years in Australia. And engage in reflection around your experiences, what you did well, less well, each time you engage in that new skill, and that allows you to move forward. Okay, can we have a round of applause for everyone this morning? Well done.